The Great Mouse Detective. The 1980s decade has often been known to be one of Disney's darkest periods in animation. The point where the studio still never fully recovered since the death of Walt Disney, and all the old animators decided to retire, leaving the animation division in the hands of a new team of young and wide-eyed animators. But even that did not go well. The first time that they made an animated film on their own ended up becoming one of their biggest disasters with The Black Cauldron. Things were going so bad for the studio that it was the closest that Disney Animation ever got to closing their doors. But then everything changed when The Great Mouse Detective came into the scene. It was a project that Disney was considering for a while by adapting the book series Basil of Baker Street by Eve Titus. But after the hardships they went through, they decided to take the risk. When the film was released in 1986, it managed to pick up the studio right after the failure of The Black Cauldron and ended up becoming a hit both critically and financially. So much so that the company decided that its animation division was still worth keeping and would later result in the Disney Renaissance. So, in a way, The Great Mouse Detective ended up saving Disney Animation, and it's all thanks to Basil that we now have gems like The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and The Lion King. But now that we're on the case of this movie, will the reasons of how this became a beloved film be quite elementary, or does it leave its audience feeling like Ratigan after being called a rat? Let's find out! The story. As it is a Sherlock Holmes inspired feature, the movie follows a mystery that our characters need to solve. However, this case is told a little more differently than your average detective story. Unlike others, where it's about uncovering the mystery until everything reveals itself at the very end, this one doesn't contain any surprises. While Basil and the gang set out to find Olivia's missing father, the viewer already knows who was the mastermind behind the kidnapping, where he is, and for what purpose. Sounds like it takes away all the fun of the mystery, right? Well, maybe. If it were about solving the mystery. Keep in mind, I said that the movie only follows it, not have it be the core of itself, meaning that the story has to rely on the journey of the case. To see Basil, Dawson, and Olivia use their wit in order to retrieve Flaversham from Ratigan before he would achieve his nefarious plan. And with that new direction, it actually works very well. Thanks to the strong charisma of the characters, which I will get to later, it results in having the adventure feel highly engaging and be as invested as they are to see how they can be one step closer to stopping Ratigan. It also helps to get into the tone of the movie, where it would supply a good amount of action when they get close to finding a clue, and a light amount of humor delivered by some of the performances and from the animated slapstick. And as everything comes together by the end, the film would go all out to deliver an intense and epic finale. However, as enjoyable and greatly told this movie can be, there is still one problem that makes things uneasy for a good chunk of the film. And yes, I'm referring to the infamous second at the start of... That dark opening may have been brief, but it does set a very uneasy tone in fear that more of that could come. And while it does quickly get more lighthearted from there, it wouldn't necessarily be the only time when Fidget would appear for a scare, resulting in the more suspenseful moments to have people worried if it'll result in another jump scare. Seriously, I just want to have some good fun. I did not sign up for this.
What the hell are you? No! 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 Damn it!
But on the other hand, that sense of dread only lasts for the first 30 minutes. After that, it quickly washes off and make it a lot easier to enjoy the movie. The story may have taken an unusual approach, but it still delivered a very solid case that's a lot of fun to solve. The animation. While the new animators at the time were still trying to take their own steps at Disney, they went with a different approach from their previous works for the visual style of this. Instead of leaning towards realism like they did for The Fox and the Hound and The Black Cauldron, the animators emphasize more on the cartoon, to worry less about how realistic it looks and just have fun with the movements and drawings. As a result, it lends the animation to be taken less seriously of itself, but still maintain that Disney quality to deliver a believable Victorian-era London where small animals have an identical society as humans. What's interesting to note about the world it's set in is that, while the characters are anthropomorphic animals, they still maintain the miniature size and acknowledge that humans are still around. What helps to capture that feeling is how the backgrounds are made to look like an accurate portrayal of old London, but in the point of view of a mouse where the average becomes massive. But there are still some places where they are conveniently shrunken down for them, so it's like if real London has a little cartoon world that the characters would interact in both. As for the character designs, they're meant to be exactly what to be expected. It's Sherlock Holmes, but if they were cartoon mice. The only difference would be the hint of the Disney style that would give the characters more flexibility to emote and to have some detail onto them to still have a refined look. But if there is one standout star of the visuals, it would have to be the character animation. Especially with the leads like Basil and Ratigan, the movements are a lot broader and expressive, yet bring out a huge sense of energy that really helps make the film feel more engaging.
Last night, and my first, as supreme ruler of all Mousedom!
Of course, there are times like with Olivia where it keeps things simple to fit the character, but for the most part, the characters are animated in a way to strengthen the humor and bring out that sense of fun to the feature. Also, one noteworthy scene visually is at the end when they are in Big Ben with the gears, which the environment was actually made in CGI, one of the first ever for an animated feature to do so. Admittedly, for computer animation from the mid-1980s, they actually look pretty good. It keeps itself very simple as they are just gears, but they also open to new and impressive shots that help add to the tone of the scene. While the animation may not have taken itself as seriously as others of its time, it still results in a great example of top-quality Disney animation. The characters. Like I said before, the key role onto the success of the film's enjoyment is the performance of the characters, and they each deliver a highly memorable element to make the film even more fun. To begin this list, let's start from the top with a detective of Baker Street himself, Basil. Admittedly, he doesn't make a great first impression, acting a bit more selfish and even resentful towards Olivia when he first meets her. But as the movie would progress, he would quickly move on from that to become one of the best characters of the feature, always eccentric and impressively clever that makes it engaging to see how he would deduct his way to know what's the next step he should take. It really is thanks to him that this movie is so engaging to see how Basil would solve the case. Accompanying him is Dawson, who is a kind man that wants to help the little girl find her father. But his role is to mostly just sit there and be amazed when Basil solves a problem. Then again, he is based on Dr. Watson, and that guy mostly does the same thing. At least Dawson does show some personality. Moving on to the missing man's daughter, Olivia would seem like the kind of annoying girl in these movies, like some would expect to feel like Basil when he first met her. But that doesn't seem to be the case here. Maybe it's because of her acting or her innocence, but she has this cute charm that adds to some sweetness onto the film.
Toby, sit.
Sit, Toby.
Good boy.
And because she's so likable, it gives another reason to see this case be solved so that she could be happy and reunited with Flaversham. But while those are the ones that would count as the heroes of the feature, some could say that they pale in comparison to the criminal mastermind of all this, the one that many consider to be one of the most underrated Disney villains,
The nefarious Professor Ratigan.
Not only was this one of the last performances by Vincent Price, but he has also stated that it was one of his favorites, and it really shows. With his over-the-top Shakespearean mannerisms and dangerous mood swings, he is the perfect blend of delightfully funny and threateningly evil. Every word that comes out of his mouth sounds like he's having the time of his life, and that enjoyment transcends onto the viewer. On top of being accompanied by his goons that also includes a cat named Felicia and the freaky but comical Fidget. If the charm of the film isn't the adventure itself, then it's definitely the cast of highly entertaining characters. You won't often find this in the ranks of Disney classics, but it is still a true gem from the studio. The Great Mouse Detective is one of the few Disney animated features that just wants to be fun, wants to be in its own world, wants to be entertaining without necessarily aiming to set a new standard to the medium, and it turned out to work extremely well. It became possibly the best Sherlock Holmes-based animated film with a highly engaging story, great animation, solid voice acting, and featuring some of Disney's most underrated characters. I definitely recommend this one as a quick and enjoyable watch if you're in the mood for something fun, especially for any fans of detective or Sherlock Holmes stories. That should be no mystery there. Admittedly, this is one of my favorite Disney movies, and I know that I'm in for a great time whenever I return to this. And for that, I am happy to give this one the AniMat's seal of approval. Hey guys, this is AniMat. I just would like to start things off by giving out a huge thanks to Red Bandit, whose amazing support on Patreon allowed him to get some amazing rewards, including this one, where he got to ask me to go and review The Great Mouse Detective. Now, for those of you who have seen a lot of my videos and a lot of my works, then you may notice that whenever I'm on camera just like this, then you might notice that right behind me that there is this one picture right over here of Ratigan. Like, what is that all about? Well, what's interesting to say is that this actually has a lot of significant history. In fact, this little picture right over here was actually used in the Great Mouse Detective movie. Yes, what I actually have behind me is a production cell directly from the Great Mouse Detective that shows Ratigan. In fact, if you want to know where this little picture comes from, it's actually somewhere right at the beginning where you see Flaversham still trying to make the robot queen, but things are not necessarily working out, and then suddenly you got little one piece of oil that just splatted out and it landed on the clothing of Ratigan, which he would react to this expression. And that little pose was actually there for like a good couple of seconds at the most. In fact, here's a little scene of where this came from.
You can do what you want with me.
So it's actually really cool that I actually did manage to actually own this piece. Yeah, it would cost me a little bit, but to be honest, this is one of my most prized possessions. And also on top of that, you may notice that right behind Ratigan that there is also something else. Well, that extra element is more the icing on the cake. It's actually an autograph from the directors of The Great Mouse Detective, who actually did make their directorial debut with The Great Mouse Detective, John Musker and Ron Clements. There was one year that they appeared at an animation festival, and I decided to go and check things out. And there was a moment where they had a little Q&A panel, and then you would go in and ask for their autograph. So I came in and got their autograph and even got a little picture with them, which was honestly a really cool moment and really exciting as an animation fan. So that was definitely a great moment, had a great time there. So overall, it results in me having this, which honestly is one of my most prized possessions animation-wise. Like, I'm really happy and really proud that I actually do get to own a piece of The Great Mouse Detective and an autograph from the directors who made it. So for me, that is honestly really epic. So with all that said and done, now that we are finished with talking about the Great Mouse Detective, it is now time that we are going to go and move on to our next request, which is going to be from Ryan Legger. So I just want to start things off by saying that if you guys would be like Red Bandit and Ryan, and you guys want to go and support my work and get some amazing rewards at the same time, including but not limited to watching my videos before anyone else, then all you have to do is go to patreon.com/animat. But at the same time, if you guys would like to suggest an animated film you would like me to review and that I would put onto the animation hat, then all you have to do is just write me an email at animatsreviews@gmail.com. So with that said, what is it that Ryan went to go and ask me to review? Well, on that aspect, he decided to go and ask me something that it's a little more personal for him, like a movie that he really likes, but not necessarily well known. It's rather an obscure TV movie that, honestly, it's hard to really describe without fully saying what it is, but basically the most that I could say is that it's more of a journey about a round boy in an edgy world.
I'm glad you're taking it so well.
Oh, I love it when I'm nasty.